All right, welcome to the resume workshop. This is going to be a helpful resource to everyone, whether you're a MarketStar employee already, or if you're looking to join MarketStar, or if you're not really looking to build your resume, but you want some helpful tips. We have stuff for everybody here. My name is Devin Jennings, and this is Camille LaRocco. We'll do a quick introduction first, I guess. So I've been with MarketStar about 3.5 years. I work as a talent marketer. So I work very closely with both the talent acquisition team and the marketing team. And I'm just a resume nerd, so that's kind of why I'm here. Camille?
My name's Camille LaRocco. I've been with MarketStar for 3 years. I work on the digital advertising side of the business, and primarily my team that I support is the Reddit team.
Awesome. Cool. So today, like I said, we're going to go over everything resume. And there's going to be something for everyone, but you should leave this workshop with some action items of what you can do to improve your resume. But as we were kind of preparing for this workshop, we considered the thought that resume best practices are different depending on where you are in the world, right? And so MarketStar, obviously we have offices in Utah, in different countries like Ireland, Bulgaria, India, kind of all over the world. So we got some feedback from our talent acquisition and HR leaders across the world on what is a best practice wherever you are. So it's important to note, I guess, that we're both located here in Utah, right? And so our expertise is kind of based on the U.S. standard of the resume, but we'll share some of those best practices from around the world. Do you want to go over some of those real quick?
So some of the ones that were really fun to kind of see the difference is, I believe it was in India, they have a video link on their resume. It was really fun to see what their resume looks like. They have a headshot is usually what is on the resume. They have a link to their LinkedIn or even to a YouTube channel. They have a video of a brief summary of what their resume essentially is. So that was really fun to see like the different types and to see like people's creativity kind of come out. There were some that were very, like, hi, my name's Camille LaRocco. I've been doing recruiting for this amount of years. And then others were more of like a PowerPoint presentation almost, where they would have different slides. They weren't necessarily talking, but they did have like their skills and their background on each slide.
Yeah, and I think Alka said that that's like a rising trend in India right now, is to include a link, because most resumes nowadays are digital, right? Very often, It's not very often that you have like a physical paper of a resume anymore.
Right.
But so they'd have just like a link to a video where they explain more about themselves. So then let's talk about kind of if you should put a photo on your resume, because that's a big thing that is different around the world too, right?
Yes, it's different around the world. Like I said, India, they do that. And in I believe that it was in Dublin that they said that it just depends. And I can't remember, there was
I think in
Bulgaria.
Ireland and in Bulgaria it's much more common, but both of those locations said that it's kind of shifting and it doesn't really matter that much anymore whether you have one or if you don't.
Right, and that it wouldn't be a red flag if somebody didn't put one on there, which is really good to know, because I think that's something that's important to look at your resume to make sure you don't have those red flags.
So if you're in India, it is standard practice to have a photo, a professional headshot. If you're in Ireland or Bulgaria, resume maker's choice.
Right.
In the U.S., we discourage putting a photo on your resume, and why is that?
Right. So I've seen that for photos that people have been putting more photos on their resume, but we tend to not like to have that just because we don't want to create unconscious bias. So for example, let's say that I have a university on the background of my picture and I put it onto the resume and it gets to the hiring manager and they're like, oh, this is my university. I love them. They are fantastic. And it can go the other way as well. Like, oh, it's this university. No, like that's my rival. And so we're just trying to eliminate as much as unconscious bias as possible. Right. And so that could be like a scenario. And maybe the hiring manager is, this person went to the same university that I did. That's my person. But they might be not seeing the red flags that the candidate is presenting.
Right. Yeah. And the more obvious ones are like gender or racial unconscious bias, right? And as a recruiter, you just don't even want to be put in that situation of feeling like unconscious bias is at play. So you'd prefer to just not even see a photo.
Right, exactly. Just wanting to make sure that everyone is treated equally and that we lower that unconscious bias.
Yeah. Let's talk about the length of resume. So
yes, so the length of resume, so this depends. If it's more of that entry-level type of position, it's going to be anywhere from 1 page to 2 pages. It's typically about 1 page. For the resume, the content is usually a summary of the work experience, skills, and education. And the purpose is to quickly show that you're a good fit for a specific job. It's used mostly in the U.S. as a job application. And then, do you want me to go into that?
Sure.
Yep. I'll just jump right into the CV. And so the difference between a resume and a CV is the CV is going to be about several pages long. And the content is going to be about history, the academic achievements, work experience, skills, publications, and more. The purpose is to show a complete picture of your professional and academic background, and it's usually used in Europe, and we do have some positions here in the U.S. that you can see a CV more often, and that would be more in the academic education research jobs in the U.S.
What does CV stand for?
It's a curriculum vitae.
Yeah. Like you said, there's a couple of differences, I guess, between a resume and CV, but they're essentially the same thing. Just a CV is more commonly used like in countries like in India.
Right. And you'll kind of like think about it as like a resume is like a short highlight reel versus the CV is like a full movie.
Sure. Yeah. Your complete work history, and it's pages and pages sometimes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so now that we've kind of covered, what are some different practices around the world, you as the viewer can kind of decide where you are and what are some of these things that you need to take into account. But moving on, we're going to be talking more about resumes and different types of resumes. Do you want to go over kind of those first 3, functional, reverse chronological, and combination?
Yeah, so for the functional resume, it's going to be skills-based, and so they are going to have more of their skills from different positions that they've had. I would say that this is more for someone who doesn't have a lot of work experience and would like to showcase that they do have the skills for the position that they're applying for. They just might not have maybe the length of experience or maybe just wanting to just really highlight the skill set. And then going into the reverse chronological, this one is what you typically see is where you have your work history, your current work history at the top, and then working down to your past history. And then the combination is going to be a combination of the functional and the reverse chronological. And I like to see this one. I don't see it that often, but it is fun to see because they showcase the skill set at first, at the first of the resume, and at the bottom is where they start to kind of list
their experience.
The experience, okay. Right.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're building your resume, you can choose which format works best for you and your situation and for the job that you're applying for. But I found out like in India, you don't have as much creativity, it sounds like. There's very much kind of a standard format that you're expected to follow.
Right.
That makes it easier for the recruiter to find exactly what they're looking for because everybody follows the same format, which is kind of a cool idea that everybody does it the same way.
Right. It's kind of nice for a recruiter and hiring manager where they can just go in and say, okay, check this, check that, we're good to go.
And so that standard format is achievements first, then your experience, any specific skills you have, and then list out your education and then any other personal info that you have. And then one other thing that I added here is a different type of resume is the running resume, which, do you want to talk about that? You look really excited.
I am excited about it because I think it was a few months ago where I was looking at my resume and I'm like, I can't even remember what I did on my last position and what some of my achievements were. And then as we were preparing for this workshop, you had told me about the running resume, which was really exciting. So I think that your explanation was really great.
Sure. Yeah, so a running resume, this is for those of you that maybe, you're not applying to a job right now, but you want to be prepared for your next job. A running resume is kind of just like a long list of all of the work that you've done, all of your jobs, and every achievement that you have in that job. You would never actually use a running resume to apply to a job because it's going to be way too long, right? It just has everything, but as it's a kind of we call it a running resume because it's ongoing. Right. As you are doing your job and working, you're adding on to it. When you finish a cool project, you add that bullet point onto your current job. When you get a promotion, you add that onto your resume. Then when you go to apply to a job and you're building your resume for that specific job, you can work backwards from your running resume and just pull out what you like and what you don't, and get rid of what you don't like.
Right, and just looking at the job description to see what they're looking for, and then looking at your running resume and just making sure that you're matching that to the job description. And I think it's a really good way to have data that you want to remember. So I was able to go over on goal 150% this quarter. I was meeting my goal this whole entire year. I think another really important part of this running resume is that you could probably use this as a performance evaluation where, if you want to go speak with a manager, you're able to let them know hey, these are some of the achievements that I've done this year, and just, want to look into this a little bit more with you. And
it's almost like a log of your achievements.
Right.
Because sometimes when you're going back, it's hard to remember those details of what percent you attained or what all you did.
Right.
But if you have a running resume, it's easy to do that. Okay, so now let's go over kind of some basic tips, right? If I'm starting out from a blank page and I want to build my resume, what is the dummy's guide to building a resume?
All right, so on there, you're definitely going to put your most important information at the top. That's going to be your name. It's going to be your phone number and your email. Location, for that, you don't necessarily need to put your address. We don't need to know exactly where you live. You can put that I live in Ogden, Utah, that you live. That way it kind of gives the county, I feel like. If, the position is in Lehigh, I know that you're going to be in Davis County, or, and just kind of think, is this going to be a commute for someone? But you can also put on there that it's going to be that you're able to relocate if needed as well. And then for the email, I know we've talked about this a lot. Please make sure to put a professional email on there. We have to share your emails with our hiring managers, and sometimes I have this really great candidate, but they put princesscamille@marketstar.com, and I would rather see more of a professional email where it says camille.larocco@marketstar.com. You can keep your Princess Camille email, but making sure that you do have a professional email where you can showcase how professional you are. And phone numbers, really important. As recruiters, we like to share resumes, and so sometimes when we share it to somebody else, they don't see the contact information. It makes it really hard for them to be able to reach out to this candidate. They're going to have to go on different systems to be able to find that contact information. So making sure that you have that is very important. You want to, for an entry-level role, you're going to want to have about a page max. And recruiters tend to look at a resume and spend about 6 seconds on reviewing the resume. And so really making sure that it's easy to read so that recruiters can go like, okay, this was part of the job description. This is how much sales experience they have. Okay, we're good there. So I'm going to reach out to this candidate.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the balance with the resume, is including a lot of relevant, detailed information, but also keeping it very simple and easy to read and digest, that a recruiter just giving it a few seconds is going to be able to get an idea of how qualified you are.
Right, exactly. Another part is making sure that you are reading the job description. People tend to think that they have to create a whole entire resume when applying for a position, but having the running resume is really helpful, where you can look at the job description, grab the information from the job description, put it into the resume that you're going to be using for that job application. So you want to have a good base resume so that it's a little bit easier to
tweak for each job.
Right.
Okay. So now we have those basic tips out of the way. I've got my starting point with my resume. Let's talk about the identifying transferable skills. Because a lot of people have the misconception that if I don't have every single requirement listed in a job description, I can't apply for the role. I'm not qualified.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case. So let's talk about this concept of identifying transferable skills.
It's really easy for us to, think that we don't have the experience needed for the role that we want to apply for. So for example, I used to work at a bank, part of their call center, and I didn't think that I had sales experience. I'm like, I don't have sales experience. I don't know if I could do a position that requires that. And then just really looking at what I was doing for this bank, we had to make sure that we had people sign up for checking accounts, savings account. If it was a loan, just making sure, hey, like, we have insurance. Is that something that you'd be interested in? So having that upselling, cross-selling, retaining a client, those are all sales experience, sales skills. It's not necessarily, I didn't have a sales goal that I had to hit, but I kind of did, where, like, hey, I noticed that you were not signing people up for the emails, things like that. And so there is a goal there, but it's not as like strict as it would be like in a sales position. So yeah, just really looking at your sales experience. I think it's just easy for us to be like, I don't have that. I don't know if I can do this, but just really looking at that area.
Yeah. So you're mapping, right, the experience that you do have with the skills that are required for the role, and seeing, even though I haven't done this job specifically, what have I done that translates well over to the role, that would, that kind of lays a foundation that shows that you would still be good at it.
Right, that you'd still be a great candidate, and that you just only need to learn a few areas for that position because you do have these transferable skills.
Okay, so now that I have a pretty good resume and I've identified transferable skills, what are some things I can do to beef up or strengthen my resume and really make it stand out?
Right, so to make it really stand out is providing the information where I could probably say that I met my sales goal this quarter. Okay, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, I don't know what your sales goal is and what percentage is that. And so if you were to put, like, I met my sales goal this quarter, I was at 150%. I was able to work with businesses at this level. That information really shows what experience you have and if it is going to be relatable to the position, transferable skills.
Sure. Yeah. So you're, instead of just saying something that anybody could say, like, I'm a good salesperson, anybody in the whole world could put that on their resume. But if you put facts and figures that are verifiable, then, not everybody can say that they hit 150% of their sales quota that year.
Our recruiting team always talks about data and just really having that data to tell a story. And so if you provide that on your resume, it really does lay out all that information so that we're able to see, okay, they were able to hit quota at 150%. That's great. And then the hiring manager is going to be able to look into that and ask questions regarding that as well.
Awesome. And then something else that I like to do to try to strengthen my resume is I don't know if there's a term for this because I think I kind of made this up, but it's obviously just to build your skills, right? And so what I do is, I have my resume here, is I look at a job description of a future job that I would be interested in and then see where do I actually lack? Like what skills does this job require that I currently don't have? And then I write down what I need to be doing to get those skills. So what certifications do I need? What jobs do I need? Or what experience do I need to get in my current job to be qualified? And so I kind of call it like my future resume, so that as I'm doing my day-to-day job, I can be thinking towards the future. What can I do to strengthen this resume?
I love that idea. I think it's really great. It's something that you can work towards, and you have like a goal in place, and then you can just check mark it and add it to your resume, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you've got a really strong resume, now let's read it over again, right? And make sure that we don't have any of these red flags here. Camille, what are some of the resume red flags that you as a recruiter see this and you just cringe?
I have too much personal information. We want to see your work experience. We want to focus on that. And then making sure that it's organized, because when it's unorganized and we're trying to figure out, okay, so this position was in 2020 and they worked at a place that has nothing to do with this position, and then we're a little bit confused, and then we realize that it's on page 2 that you do have the work experience that does line up with what we're looking for. Something, grammar, please just make sure somebody reviews your resume, and that reading it out loud is really helpful as well, but make sure that you review the resume, have somebody else review it as well, just to make sure that everything looks correct on there. Vague wording information, that kind of goes to what we were talking about. And then I love this one that you've said on a couple videos is lie. Please do not lie on your resume, because we will ask you to walk me through your resume, tell me a little bit about this, and we will probably discover that that's
as
probably
a recruiter,
a lie.
do you sniff out pretty often when people are lying or bending the truth on their resume?
Yes, when I ask them, tell me a little bit about your current position, and then they start going into it, and then I start asking, what does your day-to-day look like? And it is completely different than what is on the resume. Then that's kind of where I'm like, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So you do want to brag about yourself on your resume and present your best self.
Right.
But don't blatantly lie about what you do or any of your achievements.
Right.
And then another red flag that I put on here is add skill here. It's funny when you can tell somebody used a resume template or a resume creator, which is totally fine, but they forget to get rid of the add skill here of the template or whatever.
Right. I think resume templates are really great to keep it organized, but yet again, like just making sure that you remove that piece, you're having somebody review it, so if it is left on there, somebody else is hopefully able to catch that, and that you're also reviewing that.
Okay, so let's move on to this next part, which is looking at some resumes from a recruiter's perspective. So we have a couple of sample resumes that we'll show. We've gotten rid of all of the personal information. Do you want to start with the bad examples?
Yeah, let's start with bad, and then we can get to a good place.
So these are obviously overly exaggerated, but you would be surprised what kinds of resumes get submitted to professional roles.
Yes, and so our first resume that we have is a candidate that has lots of colors on here and characters. I do think the email is something kind of silly, and so making sure that it is easy to read and making sure that the colors, I've seen resumes that have each line is a different color, which is really like fun and creative to see. Like when I first see that, I'm like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, when it gets to certain colors like yellow or orange, I wasn't able to read that, and so I had to highlight it to be able to read it. So I think having a like navy blue or black color on the font is going to make it a lot easier for recruiters or hiring managers to read.
Yeah, and I think if you're applying to a role that has, a design element to the job, then it makes sense to kind of do some professional design in your resume.
Mm-hmm.
But at MarketStar, for most of our sales roles, right, you're not really looking for that. You're just looking for the black and white, kind of boring looking resume, but wow them with your experience.
Right, exactly. And if you do want to showcase your maybe graphic design type of experience, you're able to put a portfolio link on there, and then that way it can just direct it to a location of where you can showcase that.
Sure. Okay, now let's go over this one.
All right. So this person, our next person, they had somebody else review their resume, and so they submitted that version where it has those markings of like, make sure to add this here, and make sure to change this font to be bigger, or what does this mean? Make sure that you do the edits that maybe that person had said, but not keep the markings that they had put on there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they probably got their files mixed up in their computer, which, is another thing that we failed to mention earlier, is if you can save your resume as like a PDF and name it your name resume, recruiters love that because like you said before, you're working with tons of resumes, and it's easier to keep track of which resume is which in your computer if you have their name as like the file name.
Right. And all the ones that I've downloaded, a big majority of them are resume and the year. And so I'm trying to figure out whose resume and is this going to be. So if you're just having that name and last name on there, it makes it so much easier to identify.
Yeah. Okay, now what is the problem with these ones?
All right, so our next one is the resume. The way it's structured, how it looks is really great. The only problem on it is how it was saved and how that format has completely changed the resume where it's unable to read because of the formatting. So making sure that if you have a Word document, to save it as a PDF, check it, make sure it looks good. I would even send it to myself as an email to see if I can open it up in different areas on my phone, computer, make sure that it comes up the way that I want it to be presented.
Yeah, because you might think that it looks clean and
it might,
clean, but then as you transfer it, it kind of messes with the formatting and it looks sloppy like this.
Right.
Okay, and then what was the deal with this one?
I think that this one was one that we did like to see. It had the information of most recent position at the top and going down to the other positions that they've had. So this is going to be an example of what a good resume looks like. It has some achievements on the side of what they were able to do. Contact information is easy on the side. So this next one is going to be the one that makes it pretty easy for us to read as recruiters. Yeah,
I did catch though on this one. They did that thing under awards section where it just says award title.
Yes, that's right. So just making sure to have somebody read that and make sure
all of it.
Make sure Devin is reviewing your resume because he's really great at catching things like that.
Yeah. Okay, now let's move on to what you brought in as like the one of the best resumes that you've seen.
So I was telling Devin about this because this person's resume has stuck in my head for the last few years. I think this person, I met them maybe 2 years ago, and I still remember that their resume was fantastic. And the reasons why I really like their resume is lots of experience that is relatable to the position that they were hired into. What I enjoyed about it was that at the top it has, the profile. This is, I want to be able to go into this role. I have this much years of experience, and then going into what their experience is of their current experience. And their resume is a combination resume of functional and the reverse chronological. And so they have that current experience right underneath. And then below that, they have some achievements that they want to highlight. Like I was able to work on this position and I did this. And those skills were very transferable into the role that they were hiring, that I was hiring for. And then they would go into their past experience and showcasing there. And then below that, having their achievements of that past experience on there and that they were able to meet quota, they were at a certain percent. And then on the side, they have the education, they have the skills of what they have, the different tools that they've used in the past. So we know, like, okay, this person's going to be able to really just start this position and they're going to have a good understanding of the tools that we use, which is great. And then they have a lot of sales experience. And I really have loved this resume. I definitely look at it often to just...
That's the most recruiter thing to say.
I do. I look at it often because I've loved reading this resume. It's one of my favorites. So being able to just look and see what they put, it's just really great. You know, they have I worked with this amount of clients and this is how much I was able to attain for like goal, and it's just been a really good resume to reference and
awesome.
See.
So we said earlier for entry-level roles, your resume should be about 1 page. This one is much longer than that. So where's the point where it's, you know, how much work experience do you need to have where it's now appropriate to make a longer page, a longer resume?
I think the 1 to 2 pages is fine. Because this person has a lot of experience, and I can, you know, again, like as a recruiter, and I'm reading this within the 6 seconds, I'm able to quickly identify this person can hit goal. They are have the experience that we're looking for. So very quickly at the first page, even that I was able to identify that, but just wanting to see what else they had listed. I know that a lot of the times people ask how long a work history should I have on there. And I think that kind of depends a little bit, but for the most part, it's about like 7 to 10 years. And I say that it depends because let's say that I've been with MarketStar for 7 years. I started as a temp recruiter. I went into recruiter, then senior recruiter. I do want to showcase my growth to show them like, hey, I can grow in the company, and that is what I want to do with your company. And so that's really good to showcase that. But I also kind of want to see what you did previously to that. How did you get to where you are now? And so if I was at MarketStar for 7 to 8 years and I showcase that, I still kind of want to see what that past history is of what you did before.
Yeah. So it kind of depends,
depends.
If you have multiple years of experience, you're no longer applying to entry-level roles. It now makes sense to do longer than 1 page.
Correct.
Cool. Okay, now let's get into the hot topic, AI. How do you effectively use AI to help you with your resume?
Yes, so it's been really fun to use AI. You know, I've used it for a few different projects, and I think what you can do for your resume is grabbing that job description, and you can even ask them, hey, how can you simplify this? Like, if you were to put this into a resume, what would that look like? And then just seeing if your resume matches to that, or, you know, putting that job description in and then putting your resume in, like, help me build a resume for this. It's been, I tested it a couple weeks ago just to see how that would work because of the topic that we were covering, and it worked pretty well. The only thing that I would say is that I want to see your personality come through on your resume. And so making sure that if there's certain words on there that you wouldn't use, don't use it. Make sure you're using a word that you can speak to. You can
kind of tell when it's like the ChatGPT voice, right?
Right. So making sure that using it, but making sure that you're able to change it into a way that you feel comfortable, because I feel like a lot of the times I have the idea, but I'm trying to just gather it into more of a clean version.
Yeah.
And then just really from that point on, bringing back your personality into it.
Yeah, I think AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini are great for kind of getting over writer's block,
right?
Or for, you know, kind of doing an analysis between your resume and a job description. How can I reword my experience with what they're looking for? But at the end of the day, go back through it yourself and make sure that it's accurate, that it sounds like you. Because I think we've seen before too that, like, or I've done this myself, right? Like when I've experimented with these AI tools, I've had it help me build resumes. And then as I go through what it gave me, I'm like, wait a minute, it put experience on there that I do not have, because it identified it as like what I needed to get to be a good candidate for the job, right?
Yeah. Right.
So make sure that you're AI tool isn't making up stuff about you or lying about your experience.
Yes, don't let AI lie for you on your resume.
Yeah, but it can help you match your resume to the job description, which is something we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else on AI?
No, I think it's a really great tool to use, but yeah, just making sure that you put your voice to it.
Okay. So these are some of the frequently asked questions that we get when we're talking about resumes. We'll skip down to this one, which is, do I need to worry about an applicant tracking system searching for certain keywords in my resume? Do you want to kind of explain that a little bit?
Right. So there are some applicant tracking systems that will grab the information from the resume and put it into different categories into the applicant tracking system, the ATS. And so, for example, I'll have my resume in there and it'll take my name, where I live, my email, which is really great and super helpful. But then when it comes down to the skills and the qualifications, that's where it can be a little bit tricky. And so you do want to make sure that you are reading that job description to make sure that you are highlighting some words that they are using that you are familiar with and putting that into your resume. Mm-hmm. And that's also just when you have that recruiter or hiring manager, they're also going to be looking for those areas as well.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, right, like right now at MarketStar, we're not using Workday to like eliminate candidates based on what their resume was. Like recruiters are reviewing them, right?
Right.
But there are companies that use their ATS to filter certain resumes out if they don't have certain experience or if they don't have certain keywords.
Right. So for an example, remote positions, very competitive. There are ATSs that they will essentially scrape that resume to see if they have those qualifications, and then they'll put it into what I've seen is called a bucket, where these are my top candidates right here, and then these candidates are good, but these are the top candidates. And so for you to be able to be a top candidate, definitely wanting to highlight those certain verbiage on there.
Which those keywords that you want to put on your resume come from the job description.
Correct, because that's how they're building that out is from that job description. This is a job description, and if you see these keywords, make sure that they're going to be our top candidates.
Okay. So if you need to customize your resume for the job description, right, the next question is, so do I need to rewrite my resume for every single job that I apply to?
No. I think that's something that people kind of panic with when they're applying for jobs. They're like, I'm going to have to rewrite a whole resume. No. The running resume is super helpful. Having that base resume that is clean and organized, and then just plugging in the information that you need to put in there. Yeah.
So I don't think it's as much as rewriting as much as it is like you do want to customize it for each job that you're applying to, so that you are including the correct keywords, you're presenting yourself as the best candidate for that job. But all of the work is already done if you have a solid resume. Cool. All right, I'm curious to see what you have to say about this one. Do I need to include a cover letter with my resume?
Cover letters are a bit challenging because there are some industries that they do require cover letters.
Yeah.
So for example, like universities, they like to have that cover letter. And cover letter is essentially what your resume is, just you kind of putting your personality, like, hi, my name's Camille, I'm a recruiter, I've been recruiting for digital advertising for the last couple years, and they want to have more of that information, and they're able to see your personality. So I can see why the cover letter is fun, because I have read them and I think they're really great. At MarketStar, the resume is what we need. We don't need a cover letter. And so it just really depends for the type of industry that you're applying for and the type of role. For the most part, it'll say on the job description what type of information you need to have. So you have your resume, you have cover letter, we want to see certificates. They're going to have that listed out on the job description. Yeah,
that's one where, like, I feel like my personal opinion, I think you feel this way too, is like we don't really care for cover letters, because if I see one, like, just skip through it anyways. I'll just go to your resume. Right. But I have read a lot or seen on other websites that like a cover letter is a hard requirement. And so I guess it just depends on the job that you're applying to or the company you're applying to join on what their preference is.
Right. It depends, because some people, they don't read the resume. They read the cover letter, and they're really excited to see like what your personality and how it comes through on the cover letter, because you are able to make it more, personalized and a little bit more fun. And so I think it just kind of depends on the industry, really.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the last question that I have here is, I didn't do a running resume. I'm going back trying to remember what I did in my past roles, and I want to make it specific. What should I do if I can't remember some of those details about my previous job?
Yeah, what you can do is you can go to that that company, and you can look at their job descriptions. If they have a current position that's posted, go look at the job description, because that's what you did. That's essentially what you did in your role. So you can go look at it. The unfortunate part of it is that you don't have like the data.
Yeah.
So you don't have like, this was my goal, and then this is how much I was able to hit goal. And so those, that piece is kind of, it's unfortunate that you don't have that information, but if you're able to speak to it with a recruiter later on, then I think that's pretty helpful. But that's probably what I would do is look at that, or I think that's probably the best tip I could give for that.
I think it's appropriate to like, if you can come up with a ballpark range of some of your data or some of the numbers that you had, and obviously you're conservative and you can justify these numbers based on your work ethic and the logistics of the role. It's okay to like estimate a little bit, but like we said before, don't oversell yourself, don't lie. But I think it's okay to estimate a little bit as long as you can justify those numbers.
And I think also, just if you had a coworker that you're still in touch with, you can even ask them like, hey, can you review my resume? Does this look like similar to what we were doing in this role? Is that, am I remembering this correctly? You're able to kind of bounce back ideas with that person. So I think that's another like helpful tip. And if you're still familiar with your manager as well, you can even ask them.
Cool. Right on. Do you have anything else?
I think that pretty much covered everything. We're able to hit all those important key points.
Okay. So hopefully after this video, you have everything you need to build the best resume for yourself. If you want some more information, we will link some blog articles we have about writing a fantastic resume. But that's all I got for you.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. That was good, right?
Yeah, I think it was good.